The government credits were too good to pass up. 3,000 monthly, just for sharing my cramped Seattle apartment with an alien through the companion cohabitation program. After losing my research position at the university, I needed every dollar I could scrape together. Her name is Teva, the program coordinator had explained, sliding a tablet across the metal desk. She's from the Kalahari system, peaceful species, very quiet. Perfect for someone who values privacy. I'd expected something more, alien. Instead, the woman who appeared at my door looked almost human, save for her pale purple skin and those striking violet eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of my face in seconds. Her dark curly hair framed delicate features, and she moved with a fluid grace that made my clumsy human movements feel awkward in comparison. Jake Morrison. Her voice carried a melodic accent I couldn't place. I am Teva. Thank you for accepting my application. She carried only a single black case, no bigger than a briefcase, and wore simple earth clothes that somehow looked perfectly tailored to her frame. 2 hands, 2 legs, everything in the right proportions, yet something about her felt fundamentally different. Welcome to, well, our home now, I guess, I said, stepping aside to let her in. She paused at the threshold, those violet eyes scanning the apartment with methodical precision before she entered. The first week passed in polite, distant coexistence. Teva kept to herself, spending most of her time in the small guest room I'd cleared out. She emerged mainly for meals, during which she displayed an almost obsessive interest in earth tea varieties. Earl Grey, chamomile, green tea, she approached each cup like a scientist studying a specimen. The chemical compounds are fascinating, she'd murmur, inhaling the steam. Your species has such creative solutions for relaxation. Her movements were always economical, precise. When she walked past me in the narrow hallway, she somehow never brushed against me, maintaining perfect spatial awareness. When she arranged items in the kitchen, everything ended up in optimal positions, not just tidy, but strategically placed. I told myself it was just cultural differences. Some species were naturally more organized than chaotic humans. But late at night, when I thought she was asleep, I'd catch glimpses of her silhouette standing perfectly still by the window, watching the street below like a sentinel guarding against threats I couldn't see. 3 weeks in, the small things started adding up to something that made my skin crawl. Teva never turned around when I entered a room, yet she always knew exactly who was behind her. Good morning, Jake, she'd say before I'd even cleared my throat. When I tested it deliberately, creeping on sock feet, holding my breath, she'd still acknowledge my presence without so much as a glance over her shoulder. How do you always know it's me? I finally asked over breakfast. She paused, her spoon halfway to her lips. Your heartbeat. Humans have very distinctive rhythms. The casual way she said it chilled me. Who listens to heartbeats from across a room? Then there was the furniture. Every morning, I'd find objects subtly repositioned, the coffee table angled just so, the kitchen chairs adjusted by mere inches. Nothing obviously wrong, but the placement felt deliberate. Strategic. Like she was turning our home into some kind of maze. Did you move the lamp? I asked one evening, noticing my reading light had shifted 3 feet to the left. Better illumination angle, she replied, not looking up from her tea. Also improved sight lines to both entrances. Sight lines. Like she was planning for combat. The breakthrough came on a humid Thursday evening. I'd been working late on my laptop when I heard water running in the bathroom. The door was slightly ajar, and without thinking, I glanced over. Teva stood at the sink, her shirt draped over the towel rack, washing her arms. Her pale purple skin gleamed under the fluorescent light, and I started to look away, then froze. Scars. Dozens of them, crisscrossing her back and shoulders in precise patterns. Not random wounds, but surgical incisions. Clean, methodical lines that spoke of deliberate modification rather than accident or violence. She caught my reflection in the mirror and our eyes met. For a moment, something flickered across her features, vulnerability. Fear. Then the mask slipped back into place. "I apologize," she said calmly, reaching for her shirt. "I should have closed the door." "Teva, what are those?" "Training modifications." She pulled the fabric over her head, hiding the evidence. "Standard for my previous occupation." Previous occupation. Not her homeworld customs or natural biology. An occupation that required surgical enhancement. That night, I lay awake listening to her move through the apartment with footsteps so silent I felt them more than heard them. Outside my door, the floorboards creaked once, a sound that shouldn't exist if she was as light-footed as she seemed. Unless she wanted me to know she was there. Standing guard. The locked case had been taunting me for weeks. Black metal, no visible seams, sitting in the corner of her room like a sleeping predator. Teva treated it with the same reverence others reserved for family heirlooms. My opportunity came on a rainy Saturday morning. She'd gone to the market with her usual shopping list, written in precise, alien script that looked more like mathematical equations than groceries. I had maybe an hour. The case wasn't locked, I realized with growing dread. It was biometrically sealed. But when I accidentally bumped it while helping her organize her closet the week before, I'd noticed her thumbprint lingered on the sensor for several seconds. Alien technology, apparently, needed longer to process foreign biology. I pressed my thumb to the scanner. Nothing. Then, remembering how she'd touched it, I held my thumb there for a full 10 seconds. The case opened with a soft hiss. Inside, nestled in custom foam, lay things that shouldn't exist. Blades that hummed with energy, their edges seeming to vibrate between dimensions. When I tried to photograph them with my phone, the camera showed only empty space, some kind of visual distortion field. Small, pearl-like beads that seemed to bend light around them. I picked one up and watched my hand fade from view, the cloaking effect spreading up my arm before I dropped it in panic. But the worst discovery sat at the bottom, a data slate displaying scrolling text in multiple languages. English. Mandarin. Arabic. And at the top, in stark white letters, my full name, Jake Morrison, asset status, active. Below that, detailed files. My research into quantum communications. My financial struggles. My daily routines. Everything about my life catalogued with military precision. You weren't supposed to find that for another month. I spun around. Teva stood in the doorway, grocery bags in hand, her violet eyes utterly calm. No surprise, no panic, just the same measured composure she'd shown since day one. "I can explain," I stammered, backing away from the case. "Can you?" She set down the groceries and stepped into the room. "Because I'm curious what conclusions you've drawn from incomplete data. You're some kind of assassin. And I'm your target." For the first time since I'd known her, Teva smiled. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "You were never the target, Jake." She moved closer, and I realized I was trapped between her and the wall. "You're the insurance." "Insurance for what?" "For keeping you alive long enough to complete your research." Her voice carried a sadness I'd never heard before. "Someone very dangerous wants you dead. My government wants you protected." The companion program was just convenient cover. She reached past me to close the case, her body brushing against mine. Up close, I could feel the steady rhythm of her breathing, see the flecks of gold in her violet eyes. "So what now?" I whispered. "Now." She stepped back, giving me space to breathe. "Now you decide whether you trust me." "My real name is Teva Korth," she said, settling cross-legged on my couch as if we were having tea instead of dismantling my entire understanding of reality. "I'm what your military would call a specialist, trained from childhood for protection and elimination missions." I sat across from her, the coffee table between us suddenly feeling like a negotiation barrier. "And you're here because your quantum communication research. The breakthrough you made before the university let you go." She leaned forward, her violet eyes intense. It's more significant than you realized. In the wrong hands, it could cripple interstellar communication networks. Several hostile factions would kill to prevent its development. I was terminated because my research was going nowhere. You were terminated because someone wanted you isolated, vulnerable. Her fingers traced patterns on the couch arm, unconscious movements that looked like tactical planning. Dr. Harrison, your department head, received a very generous grant shortly after your dismissal. Curious timing. The betrayal hit harder than I'd expected. How long have you been watching me? 6 months. She looked away, the first sign of discomfort I'd seen. Initially, it was just surveillance. But when the threats escalated, my superiors decided direct protection was necessary. Threats? 3 attempts on your life. You never knew because I intercepted them. She said it matter-of-factly, like mentioning the weather. The gas leak in your old apartment wasn't accidental. Neither was the car that ran the red light last month. I remembered that day, how she'd suddenly grabbed my arm, yanking me back from the crosswalk with surprising strength. I'd thought she was just being overly cautious. So this whole time, you've been playing house while keeping you alive, yes. Something flickered across her features. Though it became more complicated than anticipated. Complicated how? She stood abruptly, pacing to the window with that predatory grace. I wasn't supposed to care about you. Emotional attachment compromises mission effectiveness. The admission hung between us like a live wire. I stood too, moving closer despite every rational instinct screaming warnings. Teva. You should be terrified of me. She turned, and I saw something raw in her expression. I've killed 47 people, Jake. My body has been modified to be a weapon. I can break your neck before you could blink. But you won't. How can you be so certain? I closed the distance between us, watching her eyes widen as I reached up to touch her face. Her skin was warm, softer than I'd imagined. Because you've had 6 months to hurt me, and instead you've been making me tea and rearranging furniture to keep me safe. She leaned into my touch, eyes closing. This is dangerous. If my handlers discover I've been compromised, then we'll figure it out together. When she opened her eyes, the professional mask was gone. For the first time, I was seeing Teva, not the weapon, not the guardian, but the woman who'd been protecting me while fighting her own battles. Jake, she whispered, there's something else. The primary threat, he's coming tomorrow. The apartment felt different at 3 a.m., transformed into something from a thriller movie. Teva had spent the evening repositioning everything with military precision, furniture creating cover points, sight lines optimized, escape routes mapped. His name is Vex Heron, she explained, checking her weapons with practiced efficiency. Former military, current mercenary. He's been hired to eliminate you and retrieve your research. I sat on the couch, laptop open, trying to look normal while my heart hammered against my ribs. And the plan is? I stop him. She looked up from her energy blade, violet eyes hard as diamonds. You stay alive. That's it. That's the whole plan. I'm very good at my job, Jake. The first sign of trouble was the building's security system going offline. Teva tensed, her head tilting as she listened to sounds I couldn't hear. He's in the building. 3rd floor, working his way up. She moved to the window, peering through the blinds. 2 more outside. Professional setup. Maybe we should call the police. They'd be dead before they reached the lobby. She turned to me, and something in her expression made my blood freeze. Jake, whatever happens, don't interfere. Promise me. Before I could answer, the lights went out. What followed was like watching a dance choreographed by violence. Teva moved through the darkness with impossible grace, her modified body utilizing every advantage those surgical scars represented. Enhanced reflexes, improved strength, heightened senses, she was everything human evolution might have produced given another 1,000,000 years and a war to fight. The first intruder came through the window. I caught glimpses of the fight in strobing emergency lighting, Teva's blades singing through the air, her opponent's weapon clattering to the floor, then silence. The second tried the door, met the same fate. Vex Heron was different. When he entered, the apartment itself seemed to hold its breath. Larger than Teva, covered in scars that spoke of 100 battles, he moved with the confidence of someone who'd never lost. "Hello, little assassin," he growled in accented English. "You've been playing house." "Vex." Teva's voice was steady, professional. "Leave now, and I'll let you walk away." He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You care about the human. That makes you weak." The fight was brutal, desperate. For the first time, I saw Teva struggle, saw her bleed. When Vex's blade sliced across her shoulder, she stumbled, and I saw my opening. The lamp, the one she'd repositioned weeks ago, was within reach. I grabbed it, swinging with everything I had at the back of Vex's head. He went down hard, his weapon skittering across the floor. Teva looked at me with something like amazement. "I told you not to interfere. Good thing I never follow instructions." She smiled, a real smile, not the careful mask she'd worn for months. That was incredibly stupid. And incredibly brave. She stepped closer, her hand finding mine. "My mission was to keep you alive. But I think I'd like to try something more." "Like what?" "Like seeing what happens when a weapon learns to love someone instead of just protecting them." Outside, sirens wailed as emergency responders finally arrived. But inside our small apartment, surrounded by the evidence of a battle that had redefined everything I thought I knew about the universe, I pulled my alien guardian, my partner, into my arms. "So what now?" I asked. "Now," Teva said, "we figure out how to build a life together. Fair warning, it's going to be complicated." I looked around at the destroyed furniture, the unconscious mercenary, the woman who'd literally fought through hell to keep me safe, and laughed. "I think I can handle complicated."